Hey, Nick here, and I'm going to give you a quick overview of what is to come in the Wolf Den ecosystem. And the number one question, the number one problem that we have set out to solve is, why do people lose in crypto? And the main reason is because people are getting wrecked. And the reality is that there's so much upside without the risk of getting wrecked, right? Then you don't need to lose your ass. And so the question people are asking is, how do I get rich? How do I get wealthy? How do I achieve my goals? How do I reach my destination? And so on and so forth. But crypto has so much upside that it is far more important not to get wrecked. If you play relatively broad strokes and don't get wrecked, you will accelerate your wealth. Okay? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the underpinnings. It's going to be a very short video, and it's just going to plant some seeds as to what's coming over the next couple days and weeks. Most of this will be live for Wolfie's holders. So if you hold the Wolfie token, you'll have access to these lives. We'll have dialogue, all that stuff. But I'm just going to plant these seeds so that they are in your brain and you can be aware of some of this language. Right? Here's the underpinnings. Okay, the foundational reasons people are getting wrecked when they don't need to. The first is they have an intractable problem, right? And I will explain each one of these, and I will do separate videos that shows examples, how to recognize it, how to prevent it, and all that stuff. I'm just introducing them here, okay? So the first is the intractable problem. The second is FOMO and urgency. The third is people are deploying MicroStrategies that are diametrically opposed to macro beliefs. That's a really, really important one. I'll break that down shortly. Frequency of exposure. They're staring at the chart all day, and they don't know how to process it emotionally, and they're taking an asymmetric risk, which is the point of crypto, but it's to the wrong side. They're actually taking risks that have more downside than upside, and I'll break that down as well. So those are the main 5 things that if you can identify them and hedge against them, you will make a lot of money in crypto. So the details are not nearly as important as learning to appreciate when bad things don't happen. That's what happens when you have explosive upside, is you don't need everything to go right. You just need to not blow yourself up in the process, which I talk about in my book, which I'll link in the description below. Okay. So the intractable problem, what this means is we don't know what we're solving for. I'll do a whole video training on this with some Q&A, but the foundation is somebody says, what's the best strategy in crypto? And the answer is it depends. Are you trying to pay for your wedding in a year and a half? Or are you trying to pay off your mortgage in 30 years? Those are 2 very different timetables with different strategies, right? So the intractable problem is, how do I get more? That is an impossible problem to solve. It's like chasing the horizon, right? But if we say, how do I generate an extra 55 grand in 7 months? Once we define the variables, we take the multivariable problem, we make it solvable. If we say, how do I make $3 million in 10 years extra so that I can retire with my family and my wife can retire, we can spend time together, that's a solvable problem, right? So most people have an intractable problem. They don't know how much risk to take. They don't know how much more they need. They don't know what relative or absolute numbers they need to pull. So they just chase more. And again, the only way to find out how far you can go and how fast you can go is to go until you keel over and die. And that's what people are doing in crypto, right? We have to turn it into a solvable problem. We have to identify the variables that can be defined and solve for the rest. Right? And I'll break that down. The best way to get a handle on that is the Certainty app, certaintyapp.com. You get a free account. I'll show you how to use it. Go check it out. Again, the account's free. This will turn everything into a solvable problem for you. Okay. Second one's FOMO and urgency. FOMO and urgency. I have a lot to say about this. I'm not going to go super deep, but here is what I want to tell you right now. At any point, look, crypto is new, we're early, and the upside is still explosive. So at any point, if you feel rushed or confused, if you're pushing a bunch of buttons trying to get a transaction to go through, just stop. Just stop. There's going to be 15 more coins launching today and 100 more tomorrow. Nothing is urgent. And if we turn our problems into solvable problems, we can then figure out what matters and what doesn't, which will eliminate some FOMO and urgency. So we'll deep dive into this, but the important thing is if you ever find yourself rushing, just stop. The key word in a repeat achiever's vocabulary, somebody that is always successful over and over again, the key word is restraint. They know when to stop because as long as they stay in the game, they're going to win. Okay? How do you knock yourself out of the game? You FOMO into things and get wrecked. FOMO and urgency. Next one is a MicroStrategy that is diametrically opposed to a MACROSTRATEGY or belief. Let me explain. This is probably the one I'll spend the most time on in the future because this is oft violated. The people that have made the most money in crypto are the people that have just bought Bitcoin and done nothing. Most of them have made significantly more than the people that try to actively buy and sell Bitcoin, catch the bottom, sell the top, yada, yada, yada. Because if their strategy is acquire more Bitcoin, which is not everybody's strategy, but if the strategy is acquire more Bitcoin, then selling Bitcoin is diametrically opposed to your macro belief. If you believe Bitcoin is the bowl of bowls and you want as much, or Ethereum, or Wolfies, or whatever your thing is, selling it in hopes of timing the market to get more is a MicroStrategy that is diametrically opposed. It is in direct opposition of your macro belief. That is like saying, man, if I only had more time, I would spend more time with my kids. And then every time you have more time, you fill it with more work, hoping that that work frees up your time later. That's a MicroStrategy, a short-term decision that gets you further away from the thing that you believe that you want. You understand how people can quickly get themselves into a bind here and just get further and further away from what they want because their MacroStrategy or their MicroStrategy is not aligned with their MacroStrategy or beliefs. So you have to get clear on your macro beliefs, which come from turning an intractable problem into a tractable one. Okay? So again, if you want more US dollars, or you want more, let's use assets as an example. If you want more Ethereum, trading Ethereum in hopes of getting more Ethereum is not the smartest game to play. Okay? Frequency of exposure. Frequency of exposure is really, really important. I'm going to spend a lot of time on this one too. But here's the reality is things that feel bad hurt more than things that feel good of the equivalent amount. So losing $50 hurts more than gaining $50 feels good, which means if you looked at your portfolio every day and 50% of the time it was up and 50% of the time that it was bad, it would be a net, right? You would just be neutral, net neutral. However, emotionally, you would be very in the red because every down hurts more than the up feels good. So there's a frequency of exposure problem where staring at the chart, even charts that go up 30% every day, which is amazing, have people panicking because they don't know how to modulate or throttle their frequency of exposure. How frequent should you actually look at data? Understanding that 50% up and 50% down, 50% up, 50% down can come out completely neutral but wreck you emotionally, and you will make bad decisions by consuming too much data. You will think you're making data-driven decisions, but you will actually be making very poor decisions from a perspective of logic and reason. Okay? You will violate your own economic and personal principles if you are exposed to data too frequently. So staring at charts all day and not being aware of this you will wreck yourself. How many times have you gotten out of a investment and then a month later, we're like, man, I'd be rich if I stayed in there, right? It was likely a frequency of exposure, not having the ability to throttle down your emotional response. So the reality is you got to figure out how long you plan on holding something. I'm a Bitcoiner, right? Bitcoin is my primary asset. I don't look at the price of Bitcoin. I put in a recurring buy every day. I don't look at it. I can only make bad decisions if I do that because I've already decided I want more Bitcoin. Once a decision is made, looking at data does not help. We can look at data to make a decision. Okay? So frequency of exposure, really, really important. People wreck themselves. And they take an asymmetric risk to the wrong side. Asymmetric risk to the wrong side, which means they take bets where they could 100x their money, and it can also go down to 0. So the downside is infinity, right? The upside is 100x. The asymmetric risk is to the wrong side, right? Because they don't know how to hedge their bets. So we want to go for asymmetric risk, but we want the downside to be far less than the potential upside. Anytime you jump into a rug pull or a honeypot or anything like that, right? You have to determine, look, I'm only going to put 0.1 ETH or 0.5 BNB in here. And that can create an asymmetric risk to the upside. It might go 100x. Worst case, you lose 0.5. Aping in with everything you have creates an asymmetric risk to the downside. It's like playing Russian roulette. It doesn't matter how much you would win, because if you lose, you die, right? So asymmetric risk, that is the best part of crypto. Most people are playing to the wrong side of it, right? So again, these are just some things to plant seeds and to think about. I'm going to do a deeper dive on each. I encourage you to share this with anybody that would benefit, maybe just from a different perspective. Subscribe to the channel so they get the future videos. Again, I'm going to deep dive on each one and show you how to hedge the downside and recognize these things. And, when you feel FOMO, what do you do? When you feel like you're rushing, when you feel like you have too much frequency of exposure, how do you find the appropriate amount of exposure for you, your preferences, your risk tolerance? How do you turn your goals and priorities into a solvable problem so that crypto becomes a variable that helps you solve it, right? Not a multivariable, unknown, intractable problem. And if you want updates on new videos, new information, stuff like that, you just go to the Wolf Den Crypto Telegram. All right, again, there's a ton more coming. I just needed to plant these seeds for you so that you can start looking and recognizing when you're changing all these variables, but you don't even know what you're solving for. When you're being rushed. If you're being rushed, just stop. When you're making short-term decisions to get you further away from what you believe your long-term beliefs are. Maybe your beliefs need to change. Maybe your decisions need to change. But they have to be aligned. When you are looking at data too frequently, looking at more data does not make you a better decision maker. Data-driven people make horrible decisions because they do not account for their emotions. And finding asymmetric risk that is to the upside. Little to lose, a lot to gain. I'm going to show you how to do all that. And in this Telegram, we have a great team of experts that are experts in different things that will be sharing how to use crypto to solve this solvable problem once it becomes one. So, see you on the next one.